Hey guys, it's Nate and my son, Mr. Bianco. Bianco, you ready to rock this?
Yes.
We're going to be talking about today the number one skill that real estate investors must have to make this business work. And it's probably not what you think, or at least the way that it's delivered is probably not what you're thinking. So with no further delay, I want to go ahead and get into this. And I want to say this first. There is a formula to this. And I want you to be able to actually walk away from this broadcast with that formula in mind so that you can go get more real estate deals done. We actually just got done. This is what they look like, in case you're wondering. This is a seller signed contract right here. Got it signed. This was signed last Friday. So that was today. I'm shooting this Monday in case you're catching the replay. So just 3 days ago, we signed this one. We've signed 6 just like it in the last 14 days. I don't say any of that stuff to boast. I say it because I want to show you legit how you do this stuff. And this is the number one skill set you need. It's far and above any other skill set that I've ever come across in real estate investing before. Okay. I made the first time in my life that I ever made an offer to a seller, I got completely rejected. Okay. Why did I get rejected? Well, it was kind of like in second grade when I asked Kaylin Haberstadt if she would be my girlfriend. She rejected me too when I was a grade schooler. Now, why did that happen? Well, I didn't realize what was actually going on until later in my business career. And it had to do with this principle we're going to talk about today, and that's confidence. I'm not talking about cockiness, the other C word, a lot of people will mistake this with. Instead, we're talking about confidence. And for me, it wasn't until I was a few years into business, even in my corporate career, which I had a corporate job before I became an entrepreneur. In my corporate career, I watched someone come in at the same level as me. He was a peer of mine in the corporate world. And then by the time that I got my first promotion, he was getting his third promotion. And it was because he had this skill set mastered, completely mastered. And for me, I didn't learn it when I was in the corporate world. I learned it as an entrepreneur from a partner that I had the chance to work with. And that partner's name, I'm so blessed to have been able to work with him. But that partner's name was Mr. Berger. Do you remember Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Berger had this skill set of confidence absolutely nailed. And I want to teach you Mr. Berger's philosophies on confidence right now. This is going to help you sign more contracts. So if you're wondering what might be holding you back, it's probably this thing. It's probably confidence. And as we take on more and more mentoring students that come through our program, I notice that it is this. Even when someone thinks they have confidence nailed, they might not be showing it in the right way. And I want to go through the practical steps that Mr. Berger taught me to help with this skill set of confidence. Okay. He not only helped to teach this to me, but he helped instill it in me. And that's what I hope for you during this time that we have together. Okay. Now he would say things to me like, "You're such an amazing person. You know this business so well. Wait till you show the world." And those things started to resonate in my head. And he didn't just say that by accident. He said it because he believed it. The confidence that he helped instill in my relationship with him, me as an individual, in a partnership that we had together, literally let us go from being this tiny little mom and pop operation up to an Inc. 500 award-winning company. In fact, we were the 352nd fastest growing company in the country in 2018. It was a huge honor. And again, I don't say any of that stuff to boast. I say it because I want to teach you these same skill sets. I want to catch your attention right now so that you'll pay attention to what Mr. Berger helped teach me and instill inside me. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question. Am I happy with the deals that I'm doing right now? Am I happy with the deals that I'm doing right now? And you might not realize it, but confidence might be limiting your deals. Now, the following athletes were featured by Exact Sports. Now, I want you to tell me what these athletes have in common. Okay, first one, Serena Williams, Peyton Manning, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Lionel Messi. What do those 5 athletes have in common? Well, Exact Sports named them the most confident athletes in the world. Now, Peyton Manning's retired since they published this publication, but the rest of them still active in sports, and they're very, very confident. Now, why does Exact Sports actually call out these 5 people? Well, these 5 athletes, some might say that they're cocky or borderline cocky, a couple of them, but the majority of people would say that they're very confident, the way that they carry themselves on and off the field. Very, very confident people. Serena Williams, the highest paid female athlete in the world. Confident. I don't see her as cocky. I see her as very confident. Peyton Manning, this guy, like literally had a neck injury that should have taken him on a football, but he kept playing and he stayed in the pockets. And even though people were coming at him full speed, gearing for him, this man confidently stepped on the field and delivered the ball every single time. Okay. Now, are you as confident as you want to be right now? Can you learn this confidence is probably even a better question. Yes, you can. Psychology Today says start with an elevator pitch that you first share with your friends and then share with strangers. That will help you build up to the level of confidence. It'll help you build your level of confidence. And I don't believe that confidence, personally, I don't believe that confidence is like this skill set to learn or not learn. I believe that it's actually a decision that each of us takes. Yeah, because all of us know like what it takes. All of us know some of these steps that we're going to talk about today, but a lot of people, and myself included, especially before I learned this, I just took the decision not to take that confident road. And I don't want you to be in that boat. I don't want my son to be in that boat. I want my son to have pure confidence. You want to have confidence?
Yes.
Yeah, we want to have confidence because it delivers so much to us, not even just business, but outside business in life. Confidence is key. Okay. Here's principles from Mr. Berger on this. Okay. Do you believe in what you're doing? Mr. Berger always used to say that you have to first sell the idea to yourself. If you wouldn't accept it or if you wouldn't buy it, why would anyone else buy it from you? Why would anyone else accept it? It doesn't make any sense, does it? So you've got to be able to sell this to yourself. You've got to really believe in what you're doing. We feel confident when we know why we're doing something. We know what it's about. We understand it. If we don't understand it, we've got some members that they came into our program, they didn't understand our seller net sheet. And they were really hung up on it, like how to deliver that. How do you walk the sellers through this? And it wasn't until we'd spent some time actually going through line item on that sheet that then I heard the aha. I get it. I heard them have an aha moment. Prior to that, they wanted to change stuff and recreate it and all that kind of stuff. And then once they understood everything, they said, aha, I get it. And it's no different for us. If we're going to feel confident in presenting something to a seller or some other type of business, or even in your own personal life, we've got to have confidence. We've got to understand it fully. You've got to believe in it 100%. Okay. The same thing for the sellers that we're working with. If they're not confident in us, why would they want to work with us? Okay. Now, another thing to note on this is that hasn't been a single rookie quarterback in the NFL that has ever taken their team to the Super Bowl and won. Okay. Now notice that I said before any statisticians from the NFL come to me and say, well, hold on, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, I'll get to that in a second. Okay. What I want to point out with this is this: confidence often comes with experience. It doesn't have to be that way, but oftentimes confidence comes with experience. Okay. Now let's get back to Mr. Kurt Warner and Tom Brady. I want to have a clarification on this. Now I said rookie quarterbacks, number one. Kurt Warner was not a rookie quarterback when he got to go to the Super Bowl with his team. Tom Brady also did not start that season and carry his team to his Super Bowl victory early on in his career. Both of those two quarterbacks, Kurt Warner and Tom Brady, they both replaced injured starting quarterbacks to eventually end up in the Super Bowl, but they did not lead their team all the way to the Super Bowl. So what I'm saying with this, though, is that confidence often comes with experience. So in the NFL, there still has not been a single rookie quarterback that has taken their team all the way to the Super Bowl and won. Okay. A friend asked me to step in and help with a seller. I spent over an hour talking with the seller. Actually, Bianco came to this house with me and we sat down with the seller. And as I met with the seller, I met his daughters, I met his wife. I even introduced my son. Do you remember that when we went to the house? Did you have fun doing that?
Yes.
Okay. I spent all this time, and it's interesting when we got down to like, let's go through the contract and let's get to the numbers on it. Prior to my friend sending me out there, my friend had offered him $131,000. And I ended up signing a contract with the seller for $126,000, which is $5,000 less than my friend had offered him. Now, why on earth do you suppose the seller didn't go with my friend at 131, but did sign with us at 126? Okay. Now, something similar happened on a real estate deal with one of our sellers in Woodbury, Minnesota, named Chris. Chris came to me, and he was inheriting the property from his mom and dad. It was him and his two sisters that had to decide everything to do with it. He was the executor of the estate. Anyways, we signed the contract. On the day of closing, he's telling me, he's like, Nate, I had another offer that was a little more than 10 grand more than yours. And I said, Chris, why didn't you take the other offer? It doesn't make sense. Why didn't you take it and run? And he said, Nate, no, you don't understand, man. When you came here, you actually listened to everything, and I felt comfortable with you. I felt confident that you're going to finish this. And the other thing is that when you're done with the renovation, you gave us the green light to come back and take photos. And I felt very comfortable and confident with that process. Now, that confidence comes into play big time. Number one, I did listen to the seller. I actually addressed what was important to him, all those kind of things. And it was really cool. After the renovation was done, we brought him back to the house. We took pictures. One of the sisters was crying, and she said, this is the way that dad kept the house when dad was alive. And it was really, really cool experience. But beyond that, the seller needed to feel comfortable and confident with who they were working with. It doesn't always just mean money. It doesn't always. In the book of Daniel, we learn about this young Jewish guy that's very loyal. He's loyal to God, number one, and then he's also loyal to the king, King Nebuchadnezzar. I'm probably saying that very, very wrong because it doesn't roll from my tongue very well. Can you say it, Bianca?
No.
King Nebuchadnezzar. I'm saying it wrong, but he was the king, okay? And during this time, Daniel was despised by some of his other peers that reported to the king because Daniel was like the perfect one. The king loved him so much, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the peers of his that despised him, they knew that Daniel prayed to God. So they went to the king and they said, hey, king, actually, they didn't bring up Daniel's name. They said, hey, king, there are some people among us that they worship God over you, and that shouldn't go on. We need to stop this immediately. And the king said, well, what do you suggest? And he said, well, anyone that doesn't only worship you should be thrown into the lion's den. Well, the king said, okay, I agree. Signed it. It went into law immediately. And the next thing you know is those evil peers of Daniel, they went out and found him, and they found Daniel faithfully praying to God. Daniel wouldn't give up his prayer to God, even though a new law had passed. And so then the king was forced to throw Daniel into the lion's den. You probably heard the story, Daniel in the lion's den.
And then
what happened then?
And then he didn't end up dying.
Yeah, he didn't end up dying. What happened?
Then the other ones ended up dying with the lions, and the king saved them.
Yeah, Bianco nailed it. So the king was really heartbroken about the whole thing, and he realized that the peers of Daniel had tricked him into this, but he had to follow through with his law since it was signed into law. Well, the next day, what ended up happening is Daniel didn't get eaten by the lions. The lions never touched him. And Daniel came out of the lion's den, and the king was so grateful to have him back. And immediately the king turned to his evil peers and said, you will be thrown into the lion's den. And he had them punished, essentially. And then, even moreover, the king said, this is how confident Daniel was. Like Daniel, willingly said, okay, I'll go into the lion's den. He did it. Okay. He was so confident that he still prayed to God, even though he knew he could be thrown into the lion's den. His confidence just stuck strong no matter what. And then the king turned to Daniel and said, because of your faith, your confidence in essence, I am going to require that everyone now worships the God of Daniel. So he changed the law, and that everyone now would worship God of Daniel. Amazing. What can you do to have confidence like Daniel did? Okay. If we all had confidence like that in our business practice, kind of like Daniel had confidence in God, our sellers would feel it because they feel your and my presence when we're there. The king, he announced, he felt the confidence so strong that he turned around and announced that everyone would now be worshiping to the God of Daniel. Now, ironically, as my wife and I, Jennifer and I, we've been preparing for a new baby brother, right? Yes, we're waiting for the new baby brother to come. And right outside of our bedroom window, there's this robin, Yeah, two husband and wife robin couple. They've been building this nest for a while. They laid eggs, and it's just ironic that it's happening at the same time that we're nesting, so to speak, too. We're getting ready for this baby to come into the world in a month from now. And so this mother robin builds nest. They lay the eggs hatch. About 14 days later, the hatchlings were born. 3 of them popped up. 2 of them came really fast, and 1 of them came like a day later or so. And like we're watching this play by play because it's right outside of our bedroom window. You can see into the nest. It's the coolest thing ever. And 2 of them start to grow. One of them grows super fast. He's like the most aggressive, confident young bird you've ever seen. When mom comes up to the nest with food, that one always has his beak up there first. And then the little tiny runt with this other one we were watching, he would always be the little sleepy one, and he grew shorter in life and all that kind of stuff because he wasn't as confident as the older
and then he
sibling.
Didn't end up flying like the other one that faced.
Yeah, like the confident one, he was up on the edge of the nest almost like by the time he was 10, 12 days old, he was on the edge of the nest almost every day, flapping those wings and practicing, and he was getting ready to jump. And his mom kind of had to hold him back a little bit, whereas the runt, he was afraid. He didn't want to get out of the nest. And then finally we hit day 14, and 2 of them flew the nest. They flew right on out. And the little one wouldn't fly. The mom bird even came back and was poking him and nudging him.
She didn't bring food that time, and she just ended up waiting for him down on the grass.
Yeah. So that was the next step. What Bianco just explained is the mom had to kind of force him. She stopped bringing him food. They had been flying in food every day up until now. But after the baby bird wouldn't get up and be brave, the mom had to, nature told her, like, draw the line. And we were getting worried. We were like, oh no, like day 15 passed. Now we're going on to day 16. This little guy hasn't flown and he's not getting food anymore. We were even thinking about getting some worms and reaching out the window and dropping them in. But we realized, like, no, this is like, and meanwhile, we're Google searching this and we're looking up robins and stuff. And we read that only 2 out of 3 make it through infancy, through hatching and all that stuff. So we're like, oh no, I hope this isn't the one. Well, finally, day 16, this little bird he gets brave. His confidence comes up.
And then he ends up standing on the edge of the nest like the other one, ready to fly.
Yeah, he stood up on the edge of the nest and he started practicing his wing spread, but his mom didn't come back. So now we're like worried. And then day 17 comes. Finally, the runt decided that this is it. He went up to the edge of that nest. He started flapping those wings, and then mom waited for him in the grass.
And then he flew down.
He flew the nest. He got his confidence. Now, if his confidence would have never came, he probably would have died in that nest. According to good old Wikipedia, reading about robins, only 2 out of 3 make it. Okay, so we need confidence ourselves in our business, our lives, everything. No different than the confidence was needed in that little robin. There's a guy by the name of Desmond Doyle. Desmond Doyle, when he was a single father, his wife had abandoned him, unfortunately, and he was a single father trying to raise his 3 kids, and he wasn't making very much money. He was a small business owner, just like a lot of us that are listening to this right now, and painting contractor. And because he wasn't making enough money and all that kind of stuff, he ended up getting churned into the local authorities, and they came and took away his kids. Now, the judge promised him that once he got his life organized with income, and then they preferred that he had like a female figure in the household, then they would give his kids back. So he went out, he worked super hard, made more money, hired a nanny, went back to the judge, and the judge said, sorry, no, because of this technicality, we're not going to let you have your kids back till you're 16. This ticked him off. So what he ended up doing, Desmond ended up doing, is he said, you know what, I need my kids back. I want my kids back. I'm going to make this happen. And so he literally started looking for attorneys. All the attorneys laughed at him and said, are you kidding me, man? Like, no one has challenged this law and won. No one. And you don't have anywhere near enough money to pay me to go and challenge this law. So no, I'm not going to help you. Meanwhile, he gets a letter in the mail from his daughter. His daughter's probably like 8 years old. And she says to him, Dad, I was beat by one of the caretakers. So Desmond flips out, drives there, barges through the door. They're trying to tell him, you have to leave, you have to leave. He says, where's the lady that hit my daughter? He found the lady and he said, if you ever touch my daughter again, I'll tear you limb from limb. Well, meanwhile, he says, now, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? And eventually they calm him down and they talk him out of taking his daughter, because if he would have taken his daughter, then he'd end up going to prison for it. It'd be a federal crime at that point. So he calms down and he says, okay, I'll be back for her. Goes back on the hunt to go find another attorney. All the attorneys are telling him no. He goes and works harder, literally gets another contracting gig. So he's painting houses by day, and then at night he's singing because he's got a good voice. So he's singing as a contract gig, and he's making more money. Now he finally finds an attorney that's willing to take this case. He starts surrounding himself with the right people. And the attorney furthermore said, you know what, I'm not really doing this for the money. It's because I want to see victory. I was once an orphan. So he related with him. So now he's got this team that he goes in and he challenges the court system. Well, the court system totally rejects him, spits him out, says, nope, you're wrong. You have no chance to appeal this. Now, what most people do in life when we get that far and then we get told no by a greater authority is we give up. That's what most people do in life. But there's something about Desmond Doyle that we all need to learn here. Desmond didn't quit at this point. Most of us would have. But Desmond said, and it's for the love of his child. Like, I think all of us, especially if you have a child or if you can remember your bond with your parents, like, you know what that's like. You would do anything for your child. Like, I got Bianco here, and if something came in, drove a wedge like that, I would be there. And Desmond kept pushing. Desmond said, I'm not listening to that. I'm gonna win this. And he ended up finding more legal support to help him. He creates this movement, basically just telling people what he's up against, and then locals start donating to his cause to beat the big government on taking away his children. Well, they they challenge the law from a different angle. It's a Supreme Court issue now. They basically challenge it that it's unconstitutional. It goes against the Constitution. And eventually they get drugged through the whole legal process. His daughter has to testify. But with pure confidence, this man takes the testimony box and says, no, I don't care what the other verdict said in the other court. I don't care that you think that this is similar. This goes against the Constitution. This goes against my right to be with my child. And I just want to be with my child. Pure confidence. After everyone in the world told this guy, no, 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 you're going to sink. You're out financially. You're going to be ruined. Pure confidence. He goes in and delivers that. The judges ended up siding with him. Huge landmark case, overturns years of this, like single father or single mother losing their children to the local authorities, to the states. And it creates this landfall. Now, I tell you that story because I want, number one, to know that you've got to have to have confidence like that. You've got to have a burning passion inside you that pushes you. Like that's the kind of confidence level that you want to have. Number two, I want you to learn from Desmond that he also built a team of advisors around him. It wasn't just him going in against the big bad government. It was him with the right legal help, because otherwise he would not have known how to approach these angles and how to work against the system that was working against him. So learn from Desmond Doyle, okay? Like the young Robin, Doyle had mentors. The Robin had his mom pushing him and nudging him forward. You got to have the right mentors around you to help build that confidence if you don't know the entire process yourself. Okay, next thing. Do you fear failure? Do you fear failure? Mr. Berger always used to say that you shouldn't fear failure because right around the corner for you, success is coming. So don't fear failure. Don't do it. And there's this animal in the wild, sometimes in the rainforests, a lot in the Saharas, called the honey badger. And he's considered to be one of the toughest animals in the world. Do you remember the honey badger, Bianco?
Yes.
Considered to be one of the toughest animals in the world. And this guy roams with lions, leopards, cobras, crocodiles. And this is considered to be one of the toughest animals in the world, if not the toughest. He's definitely the most confident, and I'll tell you why. He has this thick, rubbery skin. So when predators try to bite him, they can barely pierce his skin. Most predators can't pierce his skin. Like literally there's videos online of lions biting this thing and it doesn't faze him. It just gets back up. We have to have that thick skin too, that thick rubbery skin. If someone tries to tell us something that's hogwash, let it bounce right off of you. Just like the lion's tooth doesn't pierce most of these creatures called the honey badger. Okay. It also has an immune system that when something does pierce it, like a scorpion or a snake bite, most poison doesn't kill this thing. At most, it'll knock him out for a few hours, and he'll get back up 3 hours later and shake it off and say, okay, let's go. Boom. Okay. Now, it's also known, this is a cool one. It's also known to fight with lions, leopards. There's even this one video showing this honey badger surrounded by lions, and they're all trying to like gang tackle him, and he wears them all out. He gets this anger inside of him, and he wears every single one of them out. Boom, and basically chases them off, and then eventually is able to walk away unscathed. Okay. It's also been known to trap its own food, and it's really smart. So it follows birds. It knows the birds that like honey. So it follows those birds around until the bird leads it to the beehives, and it will literally break into the beehives. And this is how confident and like how much he just doesn't care. It'll break into the beehives and start eating the honey and the larva while it's getting stung hundreds of times. Doesn't care, doesn't faze him. He just keeps right on going. Okay. That animal doesn't care. And when we meet with sellers, we have to copy the honey badger a little bit. We have to carry a bit of the same attitude. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. Like I would say something like, hey, Mr. Seller, I just want you to know that I'm here to help. If I can do a deal that makes sense for you and makes sense for me, awesome. But if it doesn't make sense, that's okay too. We're not going to do a deal. Okay. So right off the bat, we want to have that honey badger like attitude. Like we don't care. You can't be so emotionally attached that like you're afraid that you're going to fail. That can't happen because the seller will sense it. And then if you fear that failure, it'll start getting in your head, and then the deal just won't work out. So with the seller, you want to have an I don't care attitude. I don't care. Okay. Another example of this, Mr. Seller, I'm going to be totally open book with my numbers, including my profit margin. Literally, when we met with the seller last Friday, we went through a line item spreadsheet to show them our profit margin. One of the questions that I asked him was, hey, what profit margin do you think is acceptable for me to make on this deal? Guy was totally shocked. He's like, well, I don't know. What is fair? And we wrote it in together, line item, like went through it just like that. Okay. And then the other thing that we're going to take note from the honey badger is this, like when he was circled by all those lions, you'd think that like the honey badger would try to cower and run away. He didn't back down. And it's the same thing. He steps up instead. He makes himself bigger and more fierce. And I'm not saying to get fierce with sellers, but when you got sellers, especially if you got like husband and wife, or if you got like Chris and his two sisters that I just told you about, you got a group of people and they start to kind of surround you like the honey badger got surrounded with the lions, you got to step up. They're looking to see if you're confident, if you can handle their questions, if you're going to be a good fit for them, if you're going to take care of them. So you got to step up. Okay. Step up into those situations. Bill Gates said, self-confidence is primary, and then finding your passion becomes an adventure. That's what Bill Gates said. Now, the ironic thing about Bill Gates, early on when he was still a college student, him and his soon-to-be partner, Paul Allen said this in an interview. He said, we had to fake it until we made it when we started. And what he means by that is that in 1975, there was news that broke. These guys were in college at the time. There was news that broke that a company called Altair basically produced the first commercial computer. And then Paul Allen, Bill Gates' future partner, called them and said, hey, just so you guys know, we have the operating system. We have the coding that will help run your system, the programming for it. And Altair was like, really? Huh, we're interested. Can you come show it to us? They didn't have it. Paul Allen didn't have it. Bill Gates didn't have it. They did not have it at that time. They were faking it. And so Altair invited them to come out. And then what Bill Gates and Paul Allen ended up doing is they spent the next 3 weeks in their dorm room programming it. They programmed it. Now, neither of these two owned one of these Altair computers because they just weren't available, and they would have been really expensive at the time, even if they were. So they had to program all this stuff on whatever devices they had, and they had to hope that it works. So they were basically testing it without an actual computer to test it on. They were testing on the devices that they had built inside their dorm rooms. And so when Paul Allen got out there to actually show it to Altair, can you imagine how nervous he would have been? But anyways, he came across as confident. He installed it on their system and it worked. And later when somebody interviewed him, he said, I was shocked that it worked the first time. Confidence. I'm not saying to do what they did and fake it like that. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying this, like everybody in the world knows the name Bill Gates. Did you know that Bill Gates had this confidence inside him to fake it like that until they made it? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I mean, now that I know, I mean, it's a pretty powerful story. Okay. Now, a lot of times, like even when you're on your first house, what you're going to find as a practical thing to help you, let's just say that you're newer in this business or you're brand new and you haven't closed a deal yet. A lot of times you're going to feel fearful when the seller asks you like, well, have you done this before? How many houses have you bought? And those kind of questions can make someone clam up. So what I want you to do is get in this habit. I want you to say this. I want you to say, hey, Mr. Seller, my investors and I, my investors and I. So what does that qualify you as? It means, let's just say that we're going to wholesale a property. You're going to be working with investors that are going to buy it, right? Yeah, of course you are. That's how it works. So you're going to say, my investors and I have bought a lot of houses. Okay, that way there, you're not stuck all by yourself in this little tiny island. Okay, and then that'll let you have the confidence to answer that question. Everybody knows Michael Jordan, right? Did you know that Michael Jordan, he missed 9,000 shots in his career? Missed, not made, but missed. He lost 300 games 26 different times. This is a quote from him. 26 different times I've been trusted to make the game-winning shot and I missed it. And then he said, I failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. What does that mean? It means this. If we don't take the shot, I promise you we'll never win. If you don't get in front of sellers and make offers, I promise you you're never going to get a deal. If you don't make offers, period, you'll never get a deal. It's just how it works. Someone's not going to come to you and say, oh my gosh, I read your mind. You want to buy my house for this much? Yes, I'll sell it. It doesn't work that way. You got to make offers. And part of missing the shot is how you succeed in this game. Okay. I'm getting rejected on my offers all the time. Not all the time, but a lot. Every day I have a rejection because every day I'm putting out several offers, and that's okay. It takes me, in order for me to get 3 to 10 deals in a month, it takes me a lot of offers. I do it. Like I sit down with sellers, I work with them. And, but the thing is that my confidence doesn't get rattled. I'm not bothered if I can't help every single person. Like I even told the sellers that I was with on Friday, I said, hey, have you considered listing this with a real estate agent? I think you could get a little bit more money if you listed it with a real estate agent. I said it with total confidence, and I believed it when I said it, and I know that it's true for them. But then they said, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to list the realtor. We got to sell it fast. I don't have time for the realtor stuff. I don't want to do that at all. I'm like, okay, I get it. I understand that. Here's the last principle that I want you to take home, okay? Ask yourself if you've surrounded yourself with greatness, okay? Before every big contract that Mr. Berger and I would sign in our business, Mr. Berger always had this network of like great people around him, his circle of greatness. And he checked in with them. Like almost every single time we traveled to a city, he'd have a friend there that we'd go and have dinner with. And it wasn't just like any friend. It just so happened that most of these friends were super successful entrepreneurs, ranging from the CEO of a large oil company, one of the biggest in the United States, to one of the largest real estate developers in Florida. I remember one time we were in downtown Chicago and we got an invitation to buy this big project just south in Indiana, just where you cross the border from Chicago into Indiana. And he had an advisor there. He had another big company owner down there that he went and ran the deal by. And like every single time he had this circle of greatness around to get opinions from. These weren't like paid people that he paid to be on an advisory board. They were literally just really good, successful people that he would bounce ideas off. He maintained a good relationship with them. They were good feedback. Okay. Now, Mr. Berger carefully sought out these relationships and he nurtured them. And most importantly, he also did something that he called taking out the bad energy. So if somebody inside of his circle was creating bad energy, like they were just negative, whatever it was, he would intentionally not keep that relationship. This one time we had a project manager that literally ran some of our projects into the ground, some really big development projects. And he didn't want to leave when we asked him like, hey, just go ahead, step away. We're going to take over from here and get these things done. And so Mr. Berger literally paid him to leave. It was a huge financial amount, but when Mr. Berger explained to me and showed me the ramifications of keeping him in that position, it would have cost us so much more to have him kept in that position. So Mr. Berger was very, very good about cleaning out the bad too. Okay. Now there's this quote in the Bible in Psalms 1:1-4. And it says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but delights in the law of the Lord. And on his law he meditates day and night." What does that mean? It simply means this: cut out the bad people, get rid of them, have great people around you, add people that encourage you, add people that boost you up, add people that make you feel like you are your best. That brings confidence to the mind, to the body. Have the right people around you. There's a gentleman by the name of Michael Orr. Michael Orr was a orphaned child from the age of 6 on. His father was gone. He was fatherless, and his mother was a crack addict, essentially. And in the course of his journey, Michael basically bounced from foster home to foster home and eventually ended up homeless. Thankfully, one of his teenager friends let him sleep on his couch when he was 16. And his teenager friend's father was fulfilling the wish of his mother, his son's grandmother, that his son would go to a Christian private school. And so since his son had a friend sleeping on the couch, he invited his son's friend to come too. And they got to the school, and he really pushed hard. He worked on the coach, saying, "Coach, this guy's going to be a good athlete. He's really good." Even though he's from this wrong background, homeless and all that kind of stuff, he's a really good kid. And if you take him in, you'll thank me later. Well, anyways, the school kind of pushes back against it. The coach fights for him because he is a pretty good athlete. No one's ever heard of him before, but he's a pretty good athlete. So they eventually get him in. Well, once he's at the school, then what happens is some of the other kids' parents see him basically scrounging up food, being homeless, sleeping outside, all that kind of stuff. And one of the families invites him to come live with them. And they say, "You know what? We're not going to let you live on the street like that. Come live with us." And they later adopted him. They eventually, they paid for a tutor for him. They gave him this nurturing environment, this circle of greatness around him. Well, he ended up going from basically failing grades, failing life, everything was wrong, like the world was against this kid, to becoming a student that became the best athlete in his school. Not only the best athlete, but he became the best athlete in the whole state. He started getting the scouting folks coming out to him, looking at him for not only college football, but for professional football. And he ended up becoming the best player ever, like from the state of Mississippi. And he eventually got drafted to the Baltimore Ravens. Success story, kind of like a Cinderella story, right? Well, this is a quote from Michael. I want you to remember this one. He said, "People like to talk about Cinderella stories, but Cinderella didn't get her happy ending without lifting a finger. She had to show up at the ball. She had to be charming and smooth. She had to win over the prince. Of course, she had help along the way. That's the circle of greatness, right? But ultimately, it was up to her to make the fairy tale happy ending happen." Okay. He's saying you got to put in the work. You got to have a circle of greatness around you, but you got to put in the work as well. Okay. So Michael Orr, thank you for being an inspiration to us, by the way. Like, your story is so powerful. You are an amazing human being. May God bless you forever. And thank you for rising up from where you did to become the man that you are. I love that story. I love it. And I'll share it forever now. Okay. Now, like Michael, we might not be in the circumstances. We might not like the circumstances that we were born into, but we don't have to stay there. None of us do. None of us have had a perfect life. I mean, some people, you might point at them and say your life was perfect, but we never really know. We don't know the hours they put in or what they went through to get to the spot that they're at. So regardless of where you're starting or where you're at right now, you do not have to end up in that spot. You can end up in the spot that you want to end up. Okay. Now, if this message is clicking with you, I got a little bit more that I want to tie in and bring this home. But if this message is clicking with you and you want to learn more and get help in your real estate investing business, then what I'd encourage you to do is this. Come over. I've got a free training that puts together all of this. It shows literally exactly what we're doing to make the system work in our business. It's at socialmediablueprint.com/group. That's socialmediablueprint.com/group. Okay. Now, Michael, he developed confidence by surrounding himself with the right people. He could have chose to keep running away like he did when he was in these foster homes and ended up homeless. He could have said, you know what, I'm too proud. I'm not going to take the bed that you're offering me or the food that you're offering or the tutor. Instead, he accepted it and he grew. He grew in his confidence. Similar person, Christina Noble. This woman is amazing. If you haven't met or heard of Christina Noble, this woman was an orphan as a child. She was abused as a wife. She was raped. She was neglected. Like everything went wrong in this woman's life, everything. But she remained faithful. And what she said to God one day is she said, God, if you help me rise above this, I will dedicate my life to you. Like I'll do whatever you call me to do if you help me rise above this. Well, God helped her get out of the situation that she was in and helped her rise above it. And then she felt called later in life to go to Vietnam and take care of the children that were victims of the Vietnam War. There was terrible, terrible war in Vietnam, and it displaced a lot of families, made a lot of kids homeless on the street, living in sewers, being trafficked for sex trafficking, like terrible, terrible things. So she felt called to go there. Well, she went there. While she was there, she started rescuing these kids, literally from the sewers, from everywhere, rescuing these kids. And the local cartel that was running these kids, they didn't like what she was doing, so they threatened to kill her. They threatened her life. Additionally, beyond that, the local government said, hey, you're here on a tourist visa. You can't be working while you're here. We're going to kick you out. And against the cartel, against the local government, she said, no, my calling is here. I need to stay here and help these kids. So she worked her butt off. She found some local experts. She surrounded herself with a circle of greatness around her. And she figured out a way that she could stay and then still keep helping these kids. Well, eventually she got local business leaders, some oil executives, oil company owners, to take part in what she was doing. And she raised money. And because of that money, she got grants for her orphanage, or she was able to start an orphanage. And she basically built this thing out to be probably the largest orphanage to date that still runs in Vietnam. And she saved over 700,000 children. She collectively built one of the greatest things that Vietnam has ever had for their kids, especially during that era. It still runs today. Now her kids have taken it over and they run it for her. She's still part of it though. Now, it would have been easy for her to quit, especially after she was raped, especially after she was abused, neglected, like had everything go wrong. But she didn't. She stayed in faith and she kept going. Her confidence was so strong that she was even able to stand up against the Vietnamese government, the cartels. Like she was so confident, so strong, and so brave. And I just want all of us to take note from Christina Noble. This woman was amazing, freaking amazing. I love it. Now I want you to ask yourself this: why can't I be confident with every seller that I meet? Ask yourself to be so confident right now when you meet with sellers that when they challenge you on things, you'll still stand your ground. You'll listen to them, but if they challenge you and say, hey, that offer doesn't work for me, or no, seller financing, are you crazy? Stand your ground. Ask yourself, when is it my time to be confident with everyone that I meet? That's something that Bianco and I are working on. When Bianco meets new people, we're working on him making eye contact, shaking hands. Well, maybe not shaking hands with the whole craziness of the virus world and whatnot, but making eye contact, right?
Yes.
We work on that. We want to make eye contact with the people that we meet. And it's the same thing. We want to stand our ground. We want to be confident when we're talking with sellers. Mrs. Seller, sometimes sellers will throw these curveballs at us and they'll say, Mrs. Seller, in your situation, it might even be better for you to work with a realtor. I'm going to go ahead and refer you to my best realtor now. Be confident in delivering that. Even if it's not best for you, if it's better for them, be confident. Okay. Now, another one might be, Mr. Seller, I understand that you'd like $5,000 more on your house, $5,000 more than market value even. But at the end of the day, my numbers are right here. We went through them together. I can't pay that. I wouldn't make any profit on this. And I wouldn't be able to serve you if I did a deal like that. I would never want to overpromise you. Be able to be confident saying no like that. Sellers feel that. I said no to the seller last Friday. He wanted a lot more money, and I just told him, like, hey, on the cash side, I can't help you. If we switch over to seller financing, I've got more flexibility, but on the cash side, I can't do what you're asking me to do. Okay. Jacob and Caleb, 2 men in the Bible, were sent as scouts along with 10 other scouts to take the Israelites who had just broken away from hundreds of years of slavery. They were just about to cross over into the promised land. And while they sat on the edge of it, Moses, their leader, sent 12 scouts. Well, 2 of them were Josh and Caleb with 10 other people, each leaders of their individual tribe or children of individual tribes. And these 12 were sent in. Well, the 12 come back to give their reports. And in the reports, Josh and Caleb said, hey, this land is perfect. Let's go in there. It's flowing with milk and honey. Like, let's go. This is supposed to be ours. Let's go right now. Well, the other 10 said, yes, it flows with milk and honey, but the people there are very powerful and they're giants and there's no way we can take them. We're just going to have to not go. Well, you know what ended up happening?
Josh ended up going there.
Yeah, Josh and Caleb were able to go. It took some years because the whole group of Israelites were so persuaded by the 10 people that they said they saw giants. Well, Josh and Caleb said, no, we can handle this. Like, we should go. So what ended up happening is the Israelites didn't go. They stayed lost in the desert for 40 years. And a plague came through and it killed those 10 people. And then Josh and Caleb were still standing. And then guess what ended up happening? A decade later, or I don't know if it was a decade, it was 40 years later roughly, they were able to cross over into the promised land because they held their confidence. They stood strong. They did not back down, even though the mob mentality was telling them, no, we can't make it. We can't do it. They said, you know what? We should be going. We should be. This is exactly for us. They all saw the same thing, but why did 10 of them come back crying? And 2 of them were brave with confidence. All 12 of them saw the same. They got the same eyes. They saw the same people. They saw the same milk. They saw the same honey. But 10 of them made the entire group back down, while 2 of them could have taken them in decades earlier. Sometimes in life, we see the glass half full. Sometimes we see it half empty. Which one are you going to see it in? How will your confidence be affected by things? If you see things half empty, or if you look at a group of people and you're just like the 10 scouts and not the 2 scouts, and you see fear and run away, how will your confidence show? Okay. All the scouts could have made it, but only 2 got to make it. Mr. Berger was helping me negotiate this big deal one time. It was a $250,000 deal. It was bigger than a piece of real estate, bigger than a typical piece of real estate. And I had the buyer on the phone. I had it on speakerphone so that Mr. Berger could hear, and we were sitting in the same office together. And so you picture this. We got 2 guys in an office, and there were glass windows on the building. So I still wonder to this day, like, if people across the street were wondering what we were doing. But I'm holding up this phone on speakerphone, and he's across the room from me going, zip your lips, zip your lips, zip your lips. Because the buyer was saying, well, hey, can you do any better on the price? And he was trying to negotiate. And Mr. Berger is giving me coaching through sign language across there and drawing stuff on the whiteboard and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyways, so the buyer says to me, so you're stuck on your price? And now I want to ask you this. What would you do if a seller, a buyer, whoever it is in the negotiation table, if they say, well, hey, can you move your price? What would you typically do? Okay. Well, here's what ended up happening. I said very calmly, hey, the price reflects the value. At the end of the day, the deal that we're doing right now, this is such a good value for you. It almost doesn't even make sense for me to do this deal. But if it works for you and it works for me, then we'll do this deal. And then I zip my lips. Now, what would you do if the seller or the buyer was silent for a minute? Feels like an eternity, right? When they're silent for a minute. What would you do if they're silent for 20 minutes? This particular person I was negotiating with went silent for 37 minutes. And I literally just pressed my mute button. I left it on speakerphone, and I tried not to stare at my phone to check on him. I tried not to. Instead, I entertained myself by doing some emails and other stuff, but just tried not to touch my phone, tried to forget about it. Now, sometimes when you're sitting down with the seller, you have to honor that silence. You have to be confident in that silence. You have to realize that that's what they need, because at the end of the day, this is a really big decision for them. This might be the biggest financial decision they've ever taken in their entire life. So honor that. Let them have that time. So after 37 minutes, he said, "Hey, are you still there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here." He said, "Okay, you got yourself a deal." And then within 4 weeks, we had the first ever $100,000 check. I've got a picture of it somewhere out there, but it's the first ever $100,000 check that we had ever gotten in our entire lives. At least me. Mr. Berger had done bigger deals, but for me, that was huge. And let me just tell you this, that helped the confidence a lot. Like, you got to feel these things inside of you. You got to feel very worthy. You got to know that you're a blessed child of God and you deserve this. You got to know that what you're doing is helping others. As long as you truly believe that and know that, you got to practice this business the right way. If you're in this business to do it unethically, then just get out. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Totally drop off. But if you're in this to help people and serve people, you're going to get paid to do it. Okay. You also have to get into the mindset of not letting yourself overthink things. If you start overthinking things, it can lead to worry and negativity. So don't overthink things. You're going to add a contract contingency that will protect you called an inspection contingency. That's enough. Don't overthink it beyond that. Do what Mr. Berger did and build a circle of greatness, this positive circle of people around you. Remind yourself that I'm worthy. Say it every day. I am worthy. I read it in my daily devotions every morning. Okay? Be like the honey badger who literally says, I'm not going to overthink this. He says, I don't care. Like literally this little honey badger can get knocked around and he gets right back up. You need to be like that. Just like the honey badger. The honey badger, he says things like, I eat scorpions for breakfast. Cobras, I'll rip them limb for limb. That's the honey badger. Like he's got that toughness inside of him. He says, watch out, lions. I'm the king of the jungle. I don't want you to get obsessed and go too far and get cocky. I just want you to be confident. Carry that confidence with you. Speak positivity in your own life. Surround yourself with the circle of positivity, the circle of greatness like Mr. Berger did. Okay. The other big one is have gratitude. Have gratitude. Sometimes we can get off-centered, and if we're not grateful, then it's really hard for us to be grounded and also to be confident. When you have gratitude, like literally, like in Desmond Doyle's case, he had so much gratitude just for the opportunity to spend a weekend with his child. And he expressed that when he was on the stand testifying. And that gratitude comes in. Now, we can all relate with someone like Desmond who lost his children and why he fought and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes we forget the gratitude piece that helps us stay connected. So have a lot of gratitude when you do this. Literally thank God every day that you get the opportunity and the chance to serve people, to serve sellers. Thank God that you have food. Thank God that you have a roof over your head. Thank God that you've got your family. Okay? My challenge today for you is this. Know how to serve people in your business. Replace any scarcity mindset or negative thoughts with a circle of positivity and a circle of greatness, and just really go out there and create this environment for you to be confident. Be confident. Learn from Mr. Berger. Learn from Desmond Doyle. Learn from Michael Jordan. Learn from Michael Orr. Learn from Christina Nobel. Learn from the honey badger. Be confident. This is going to help you bring more deals to yourself. Now, I'd appreciate if you do one thing for me. One thing, maybe two. Press that subscribe button so that you'll get notified the next time we do a broadcast like this. Go ahead and press the subscribe button. And then also, if you think that this message can help somebody else, press the share button. Share it out there to some more folks. We'd be honored to serve folks that need messages like this. All right. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Bye.
Have a good night. All right.